you know that your building's going to be there for 50 years, right? So
Right.
like, how do you take a much longer stance on it? I mean, as putting on my real estate developer cap, you're like, okay, like 5 years, we need payback, we need this, we need that. And you slam you guys as the general contractor to make it work, right? Like,
Yeah.
this was my budget, make it
Always.
work. Because that's what my 5-year plan is. I think if you extend that duration out and look at it more from a health and wellness and kind of resiliency and energy independent standpoint, that you'll see better buildings come online. But I'm not. I hopefully maybe this one podcast will change like 5 developers' minds. and we all get phone calls, right? So
Yeah, it could just that one person.
That's it.
Have that. And that's what we're trying to do. Ultimately, is bring value to these conversations that we're having, and we're sharing it as we're having it, but bringing value to the audience. So when they do listen, there's something there. For them to-
absolutely.
All right, welcome to another episode of Blueprints to Punch List, Healthcare Edition. Today in studio, we have Matthew Ferguson, founder of Earth First Consulting. They're a nationwide MEP engineering firm based out of New York City. They have a footprint in Florida as well. And Matthews and his firm are dedicated to provide sustainable design and innovative building solutions. He has a passion for creating buildings that function like living organisms. Can't wait to dive into that a little bit. And Matthew's teams integrates cutting edge technology with environmental responsibility, which is a big theme for his firm as well. Man, welcome to the studio.
Thank you. Appreciate having me. I think, based on our questions and answers, we'll have good dialogue of construction, blueprints, and design. So that's the intent.
Awesome. And today, also joined by Tyler Hunt from our estimating team. He keeps the ball rolling on all of our projects. So Tyler, glad you can make it today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Dave. And Matthew, thanks for swinging in here.
Thanks, Tyler.
Absolutely, man.
So glad we got to have this set up. We've recently met at a conference in Denver.
Yep.
And which is kind of cool. You go across the country and you meet interesting people and stuff that, cool stuff that they're up to. And then we have a chance to come in and have these more intimate conversations. But really, it's just sharing with, what we find interesting and we find unique to the healthcare space and a little bit beyond. But it's just cool to have these conversations.
Yeah, really good. I mean, meeting you guys in Denver, meeting a bunch of other people are in this space, kind of from the construction side of it, and then as well as the real estate development in that healthcare world. FOMA, great organization, setting that stuff up. So glad that we could kind of reconvene here in Orlando and see where it goes.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Did you meet anybody else interesting out there in Denver?
There was a few developers. I'll name drop Lena. They're a new organization that's kind of building out office spaces for future doctors. I was actually just out in San Diego with anesthesiologist and an ER doc talking about, how they would actually forego the traditional practices now that they're kind of independent, and that's what Lena is attempting to do on the kind of real estate development front, is kind of following the market trends, I guess, so to speak, regarding like doctors, real estate, and then gets into what we do every day, which is design and construction. So,
Well, that world is definitely changing the overall healthcare landscape and medical landscape of how it used to be, the big central health towers and ER centrally located in a city, and you'd have one, maybe two, depending on the size of the city. So then everybody would have to come to that particular location if there was an issue. Whereas now we're seeing more of the decentralized, right? Just you'll have 20 to 30 different ERs.
Just on my way over here, Advent Health, very big group, right? And there it was, standalone facility, and I think it's brilliant. So
Yeah, definitely leaning towards that way. As Dave mentioned, the decentralized multiple locations, and I think it offers the patient a lot more flexibility as well.
Yep.
So
And it's going towards how we operate as a society. We want everything instant. We don't want to drive 30 minutes to a hospital or a medical clinic that if we can get there in 5. You know, we don't want to wait for our packages to arrive in 5 days when we can get it this afternoon. Like the click of a button and it delivers to your house. So it really is just like shifting the way our society is shifting.
absolutely. And I see it more, where you start to move it into the health and wellness space, and we can get into that, kind of how we start to create these spaces and make them healthier. Maybe not in the traditional way of hospitals, but like, I go back to 2018, 19, and standalone emergency departments was kind of the talk, and it still is. And that was definitely one of those propagating factors of, whether it's standalone medical office buildings, standalone EDs, like there's a lot of kind of off-campus type conversations at that conference we were at. So that dialogue's there. I think you'll start to see more of that move into our health and wellness space. So.
Yeah, for sure. So before we get too far down the rabbit hole here, one of the questions we do like to start with is, what is a recent win that you had?
Big win.
It could be big, little. I mean, just in the last, couple of weeks, month, it could be business, personal, health.
So personal gains was pretty good. Did a half marathon with my daughter. So that was pretty awesome. Yeah. We did it in just over 2 hours.
That's pretty good.
It was not too shabby. About, 5 minutes of walking that, but it was pretty awesome to be able to kind of live that moment with her. Work wise, not in the medical office building space, but doing some innovative multifamily projects, looking at like a 99 unit in the Northeast. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Now on the marathon, are you a runner?
I may have done a half Ironman before, so yes, I can run, but I don't like it.
Okay.
But if you train, whether it's through walking, running, or whatever, and you just practice, like I think anybody could do anything when it comes down to it.
It's a mindset thing, because I think there's a stat like over 50, or no, actually it's like over 80% of the ultra marathon racers are like 50 plus. And,
makes sense.
And it's, that just shows you that it's not necessarily a physical attribute. And I probably have those stats wrong, but the point is it's a significant number in the later years of life. But it comes back to a mindset. Like you don't compete 100-mile race without having, or even half marathons and right. Beyond because of the mindset.
I mean, fun story, little off topic. I was biking with a wonderful lady on the half Ironman, and we did about 15 miles of the 56 miles together, and she told me a bunch of stories, and my favorite one was that she had never done a marathon before doing a half Ironman or a full Ironman, and I was like, that's insane. And fun fact, I would probably do a marathon before I went out and tried to do a full Ironman.
No doubt.
Just to gauge my insanity level. So
yeah. That's true. I run. My wife did a half for her one of her milestone birthdays, and we all went down there and celebrated and cheered her on. And at the end, she's like, "Here's my shoes. You can throw them away because I'm never running again." But now she's starting to get. Yeah, But I went for a run first time in a while. So it's interesting we're talking about this. Just this morning, I was in Tampa earlier, and just the sunrises over there are so beautiful.
Oh yeah.
I actually saw a little dolphin in the bay right along the where I was running, so it was kind of cool to see that.
Those are the big wins of running. You just up a little bit earlier and a little bit of heart rate, and you're seeing beautiful things. So
That's right.
But
I like it. So, what inspired you to start Earth First, and tell us a little background?
yeah, a little
on the
background
company.
history. So I have about 20 years in the industry, design and construction wise. In about 2013, I was deciding between, starting my own practice, um, getting more into the mechanical contractor side. I had designed for almost a decade at that point, and I knew that there was something bigger out there for me, and I actually transitioned into a mechanical contractor at that point. So that's why I like hanging out with you guys, is because we put the boots on and we figure out the problems in the field. I think it's a valuable asset to have, from a consulting firm standpoint, is being able to actually bring that to the table, that knowledge base. But the idea in 13 was, how do I take these amazing projects, lead building projects, being a part of the US Green Building Standard, very much an early adopter of these types of things and promoting it. And then how do I transition that company to do that? So the idea was birthed way back then, didn't start till 2019, and here we are. So still, kicking with Earth First Consulting as a consulting firm, but with that kind of construction background too. So
That's super valuable. I would agree. So you went from design, and this is all in New York City, or is that
all of the work was based like out of New York, but there are national offices. So I've worked in California, Florida, Massachusetts, New York, DC, kind of on a large scale projects. Healthcare wise, was like Bethesda, Maryland, building two hospitals there for Holy Cross. Long Beach Courthouse out in California, which is a really large one. But then, like, fortunate enough to be like at these large design firms where, we were in the UAE, a decade ago, and we were in South Korea a decade ago. So it was like, a lot
Very
of
cool.
very cool real world experience, but obviously based out of the New York landscape. So yeah.
And then how'd you transition to a mechanical contractor, and to what capacity? Maybe I have my background, funny enough, is from the mechanical contracting world. I started actually on a job site cutting ductboard,
Okay. Yeah.
and in the middle of summer, so it was like July in Florida, South Florida. So typically when you're an AC
You lost some
contractor,
weight.
I didn't have much to lose, but yeah, definitely. And then just the first night you come home and your arm is covered in fiberglass
Oh, yeah.
ductboard, the little fibers in there. So definitely questioning my decisions, but stuck it out. And anyway, I ended up transitioning, and when we moved up to Orlando, came into the GC world. But I have the background in the mechanical world. It's interesting because so you have to know electrical, you have to know mechanical components, a little bit of plumbing as well.
Yep.
So it's an all-encompassing world. But how'd you transition into that
I
world?
mean, so as a mechanical contractor, and this was based in New York City. So like exciting projects we were awarded were like Hudson Yards, which is ginormous, working on a 1 million square foot shopping mall for a few years, right? To also kind of helping lead a project in Hunters Point, which is blowing up major, large, high-rise residential. So it's like I think the dynamic of that mechanical contractor side of it is seeing the real world implementation of like how things fit, how things work. As at Earth First Consulting, we do a lot of 3D modeling and try to deal with clashes and pinch points and do it, at the beginning of it, because we don't want to deal with those issues later. We can talk about it now. It's always getting clients to pay for those things because they are, a little bit more. But I think that you're going to see the return on investment later. I mean, you can hand over a set of models and prints at this day and age, and pay for them at that point, and give them to a mechanical contractor, and they can actually build from them. Now, I do think that garbage in equals garbage out. So if if the fee is half of what, was negotiated and stuff like that, then the level of effort putting into it is kind of the level of detail that you're getting back from it. Right. So,
Absolutely.
and I don't know, as a cost estimator, Tyler, how often do you see a fully coordinated model?
It's very rare. Yes. I think we do deal with projects that have a good design, a good basis of design, some of the healthcare projects, but when we start talking about the one-off projects, we certainly run into those issues. Now we're not quite at the scale of BIM. However, we certainly experience those same issues.
Yeah. So I think that's the really cool part about being in the field and kind of seeing it and working with the guys. You get a different perspective of all of that, and you bring it back into your kind of design criteria and how to make things work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that real world application, I mean, that's invaluable, right? Because most of the engineering teams that we're working for, these people are straight out of school. It's what they learned in the books, and they're not really willing to bend or go around what they know in black and white, right? So you have that real world experience that kind of brings everything to light and kind of connects the two pieces, if you would. So I think that's super valuable.
And I think the other part is, so I transitioned inevitably to a design build mechanical contractor world too. So it was like licensed professional engineers working with builders, and it really kind of changed that whole dynamic. I mean, you can create those preferred partnerships with design firms that, would, are willing to work together at that level. But that's where I really saw, some change, and every market slightly different, meaning
Sure.
like, my boss at the time was from San Diego working, where he did, design build out of there. Then he was managing an office out of Utah, all design build. I see it more prevalent now in the Florida landscape happening, and I don't know if the Northeast will ever figure it out, but I think they, contractually and the large sums of money, they like to continue to keep that siloed approach. It makes it a little bit more difficult because, somebody's not managing all that data. That's the one thing I definitely know is there's a lot of data exchange going on, and you kind of, as an owner and, studying real estate development myself, you'd really want to hone in on where that data is being stored and how.
And how and who is interpreting it.
Yeah.
Because the one, you can have all the data in the world and it's great, but if it's just sitting there and not being utilized properly and specifically by the teams in the field, then
Wasted space.
Yeah.
I mean, we're at, and I don't know if it was I'm not in charge of the questions, guys, but I can drive the show right into AI right now.
We can take it.
So, I think that's where we're going to see a big transition, is because we've been storing this data since 2012, kind of figuring out how to get it into, we'll call it like cost estimating models or procurement like processes that a lot of people can kind of take a look at through design development and construction documents, and then getting into that kind of 3D coordinated model. And then you can kind of validate it and use it at the end of the day as the owner. That's your, that's your bread and butter, so to speak. So you could see, but the landscape that we're currently working in, and I'm sure you both see it, like prices fluctuate on subs and buying power. And
For sure.
go ahead, you guys can list all the 12 other things.
Yeah, I mean the price fluctuation is pretty crazy in itself, and I think what we find is a lot of the skilled work that these subs kind of go out on a whim and try to price. That's where we find those large swings. So
Yep. And so I haven't fixed it yet, but I do have internal components that we, hold to pricing models, so we can actually give people like raw data that says these are the linear feet and this is what we came up with. So we do that for our clients. So
Well, with BIM, that's the beauty of it, is you can extrapolate every layer of the project and give it to the estimating teams and the quantities almost down to the screws, really, if you had to.
correct. I mean, all the hangers, all the screws, if necessary.
Yeah, obviously a little redundant or a little extreme example there, but
Correct.
to get the point across, it is, if the data is there through the BIM design, then it's absolutely possible. But still, it's we have to somehow communicate that, because not every project, especially in our world, constitutes that kind of detail of a design. If you're already drawing in, BIM models, and to what degree is, there's variances there too. But these guys have to know what they can extrapolate and what's usable, and then go even a step further to our subs, right? Who it's a lot of them aren't using BIM. A lot of them aren't familiar with, okay, well, what do I do? Now you gave me, the mechanical example is, okay, every single size of and linear feet of the size of the ducts, right? So, but they still are traditionally back to there. So it's almost like the reverse needs to happen, where we're the subcontractors who are doing the estimating need to be the one telling us what information they're looking for, and then having you guys in that BIM model coordinate with all three teams to be able to have that data.
I definitely see the sophistication part, right? Like you get, whether it's a cost estimator or a project manager, or you do like 3D BIM coordination because you are a construction manager and that was a requirement by an owner. But you definitely kind of see it on various levels of sophistication, right? So it's like you can be really complicated or you can be really simple. And I can tell you that I can design a 2,000 square foot home and help people to do it, right? But there are also very good plumbers, mechanicals, and electricians that don't need a professional engineer to do that 2,000 square foot home. So,
right,
like who's paying who for what and what information is kind of, that's where we're at. And then AI just got thrown in to kind of mess with it some more. So
So yeah, I mean, we can talk about AI a little bit, because that is a topic it's on everybody's mind.
absolutely.
So what are you guys seeing in your world in the design side? How are you implementing it? How are you seeing maybe the clients asking for it, or how are they thinking about it?
So it's not really a client push as much as it is internal, right? Or trying to provide additional offerings. So, on a high end AI using like a BIM 360 and using a lot of the Autodesk products, and then figuring out how to sweep it into some of the the various AI tools, we've been able to actually kind of come up with some order of magnitude, rough order of magnitude pricing of equipment, systems, buildings, for total construction costs. As the internal developer in me, I want to be able to figure out if I can extrapolate that a bit further and figure out what rental rates are and capex and really kind of like dive into it a bit more. But yeah, it's finding the right partners along the way to be able to have those discussions about what information do we have, how can we utilize it, and what can we change. Um, and that goes down from like a high level to the granular level, to like, how much solar exposure are you getting on this building and how much energy can I produce? So like that gets back to the sustainability type piece, or the resiliency side, as I like to put it. And you can do that really early on and get good values from the models and AI and
Do you have like a
algorithm.
specific use case for how you implemented AI into a project? Like,
Right.
are we talking? Because there's most
Yep.
people, I think, when they think of AI, it's Chat GPT,
Yep.
it's Grok, which is a very basic layer one, kind of like your just initial starting point, right?
Right.
But then now we're hearing, AI agents.
Yep.
We're hearing different layer twos being built on, using the automation tools like N8N and some of these other some other tools out there that can automate workflows. So how do you do you have specific implementation example that you can
Right
see?
now it's at that high level, the granular level, and not specific into projects, outside of being able to kind of deal with what Chat GPT can kind of help manage, which is looking at kind of sourcing data and then providing a succinct outcome, right? So it's like, fun fact, I teach at NYU. I do a sustainable infrastructure course. I also do a plumbing design 1 course. A year or so ago, or 2 years ago, whenever ChatGPT actually launched, I asked it a plumbing 101 question about pipe size and velocity, and it got it wrong. So my trust level with mathematics on it and data analytics is much lower than I'd like. But that said, we are utilizing it on that high level, not the estimating granular level, because I think it could get a little dangerous if you trust it to that point. Like, Excel's probably still going to do a better job.
Yeah.
For now.
For now. But that said, I do see it from a writing standpoint, and being able to kind of articulate yourself better and faster, and having young engineers articulate themselves better and faster. Like, young engineers in my organization are learning faster than I could have ever learned due to AI. That's hands down a fact.
I would say that that's probably the biggest thing for me too. It definitely automates some of my workflows. It helps me write the better email that sounds a little bit more professional, right? But the biggest thing is the learning piece. And I think really the only tweak that they need to do there is just being able to rely on that data from reading it and not having to cross-reference it from somewhere else. But I mean, I found it extremely helpful. I take details and things sometimes that I don't understand on plans, plug it into the AI software, and it'll kind of step me through the processes for construction. So I think it's very good on the learning curve.
And that'll go back to the point of like doing that a decade ago as a contractor, and being able to articulate how things are getting installed, right? Like, why are you doing these bends, or why are you doing these sweeps? And like, I learned a lot from a lot of field guys about how to get things installed versus just drawing something on paper. So,
And do you think where AI at the speed that it's going, that in the next however 3 to 5 years, like, is it gonna be to a point where it's replacing some of your staff, and maybe not maybe not replacing, that's not the right word, but to like being able to, like, your staff is almost guiding the models instead of necessarily they're the ones drawing some of the
I get like a supplemental growth model, right? So like where you would have hired 5 people, you're gonna hire 2, right? Or you're gonna hire maybe a higher level person that is more AI driven than 5 mid-level people to try to accomplish the same goal. At least that's the way I see it right now. But I also believe kind of that blue ocean principle, right? Like if you head that direction, like everything will go that way and you'll continue to grow and foster. I think it's those that don't embrace AI and or don't understand what design build are, or don't, like, they get stuck in like a 40-year-old or 100-year-old mindset of this industry, and it's just not going to thrive. I think, for young guys like us or even me, like if there's a will, there's a way. Like owning a mechanical contracting company around different places could be pretty beneficial to Earth First Consulting as a 10-year out there type goal. But right now it's more on the architectural and engineering, sustainability, and trying to push costs down, right, in this market, and still come up with a superior product.
Yeah, and we have to be thinking about it and how it's going to impact our industry as a whole, because it's already there, and there are industries that are being wiped out because of AI. But how is it going to be coming in? How are we going to implement it and be sustainable? Like, a company we're with has been around for 30 years. How does that next 30 years look like with some of these new technologies? And if we don't get ahead of it, then it's just going to swallow companies right up, as a whole. So
I think so. Maybe it'll be more interesting to see how AI plays out with our future, housing stock, building stock, stuff like that, because we all live in that physical element, right? We live in the world of lights, the world of bathrooms and plumbing, and everything should be fixed and worked, right? So and it's easy for new construction. We start to look at our existing building stock, and it's insane. Like, whether that's in New York and Brooklyn or New Jersey, or Michigan is stuck with 1970s homes, and they're not adding new stock. Florida's a mixed bag of everything, new housing,
Yeah.
new stuff with old stuff, and it's wild. So
you can have, this old rickety house from the 1950s or 40s, and then right next to it is a 1-year-old brand new mansion,
Yep.
which is just crazy.
But
But
that's where I'm curious over the next decade, because we are in these like nuts and bolts type jobs, positions, speaking intelligently about it versus the computer world, right? Like, yeah.
yeah, and I think the challenge is, again, just how are these tools getting implemented? If someone's not using AI right now, at the very minimum, they should be picking up ChatGPT, a couple of 5 prompts a day, kind of the minimum, just to get a feel. And really, it's really probably worth that 5 to 10 hour deep dive on it. And it's crazy, the rabbit holes that it can take you down on. And literally you can just ask ChatGPT of, hey, teach me about AI for my industry. And it'll come up with a course, daily. It's like, hey, I want to learn 5 minutes of about how to implement this for my business and in our industry, and it will give you the prompts, and you just kind of take it from there. But I do encourage everyone that I talk to, if you're not using it, you are behind.
So sales and marketing wise, I'm able to take and even training. So that's why I think it's important. And I'll help people out with training, future training programs, sell training programs, soft pitch, Earth First Consulting will do that and help you do that. But a lot of it is based on a lot of stuff we put together and then kind of repurposed it through AI to then come up with videos, come up with training programs, and be able to like kind of help young people along the way, or teaching people about the remote work scenario. I know like we all went back to the office, but in 2019 my whole business model went full remote. Like I didn't even have a choice, right? COVID came in, said, your employees, the people that you work with, are now going to all be remote. And for better or for worse, whatever people say, that's still this way today. And I've had to onboard people, train people, and get people up to speed on exactly what that looks like. But it also allows me to have, or our firm to be more versatile. We're able to touch 30 markets, and they could be either up and growing markets, or they could be kind of like ancillary markets. Like we're doing a project in Minnesota. I'll end up being in Minnesota for a couple weeks. Spend a month here in Florida working on projects. In-person time, I think, is extremely important. But it's interesting because if you have the capability to do it, you don't necessarily need an office in that location, like hammering people. If you have the right system, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
A computer and an internet is
relationship. That's it.
And meet the people. Yeah. Like show up, meet the people. Like, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'd agree. So talk about buildings as living organisms.
Yeah, that would racked my brain around that one. So if you're familiar with any of the building standards, there's a handful, right? So you have the U.S. Green Building Council that came up with LEED. That was just around the year 2000, I believe. Don't hold me to any of these dates. This is just what I've lived through. But and then in 08, like, or 2008, they kind of like really kind of pushed the envelope as far as utilizing sustainability as kind of this guideline into the public sector. And a lot of universities, a lot of cities, a lot of states started to adopt it, which was awesome. And it really pushed that forward, so much so that in 2025, we've now seen the building code itself, adopted to the point of where LEED was in 2008. And that's state by state, area by area, but it is pretty profound. The living organism side of Earth First Consulting stems from the Living Building Challenge, or LBI, which is like, it gets into the true in-depthness of like how independent can you make a building. That was right around net zero, right? So pushing of net zero. Now you have these well buildings, and then well is the other one. And so LEED competes with well because well wants more outside air, and it costs more energy, and has like a higher COGX, better, healthier people in your buildings, more outside air. This is all great news. But then you look at the kind of the design parameters, and it goes against what kind of LEED did. So that's why I think, we're at the cusp that if we look at buildings holistically, from the lighting, the architecture, the greenery, the, all of the different
The
working.
natural lighting.
Yeah, the natural lighting, like, cool art pieces. I mean, if we really wanted to push into feng shui and like some other stuff, like that stuff fascinates me more than just how do you build ductwork,
Yeah.
But I'm not opposed to doing one, but the true passion is how do you make a building that's better. I mean, I think fun fact wise, and Tyler, you could correct me if I'm wrong, that if you set up like a lead silver or a lead type building, cost wise at the beginning, your dollars per square foot might be even to a code building, or is it?
I don't know if I have the expertise to answer that directly, but certainly an interesting question.
Yeah. I think what I've noticed over the years is putting the thought into it at the beginning, you can get competitive pricing still and get a really good, resilient, nice building with good features to it that don't, inherently cost you a lot more. But
well, and the cost, I mean, certainly COVID threw a lot of that out the window.
Right.
when you try to be sustainable and still, all of a sudden your steel package doubles the price in 3 months because of that's just what happened.
Right.
It doesn't matter how efficient that building is. If it's about, meeting those budgets, you're going to have to figure out which one's more important. And I think that it tends to lean towards the cost and not, but and again, most of the world that we play in is these smaller MOBs and tenant build outs, which you don't have some of those in play. So, but still, definitely an interesting topic to explore.
It's kind of taking that 7th generation approach, right? You know that your building's going to be there for 50 years, right? So like, how do you take a much longer stance on it? I mean, as putting on my real estate developer cap, you're like, okay, like 5 years, we need payback, we need this, we need that, and you slam you guys as the general contractor to make it work, right? Like this was my budget, make it work. Because that's what my 5-year plan is. I think if you extend that duration out and look at it more from a health and wellness and kind of resiliency and energy independent standpoint, that you'll see better buildings come online. But I'm not, hopefully maybe this one podcast will change like 5 developers' minds and we all get phone calls, right? So
yeah, it could just that one person.
That's it.
Have that. That's what we're trying to do. Ultimately, is bring value to these conversations that we're having, and we're sharing it as we're having it, but bringing value to the audience. So when they do listen, there's something there.
Absolutely. I got a question for you guys. This is kind of loaded, and I travel a lot because I like to meet people and talk about exciting projects that people are working on. But I'm sure you guys get around hotel wise and just walking around, being in the construction world. What catches your fancy? Like, is it everything that you see, between like bathrooms to lobbies to
crappy stucco work? Just really drives it home for me.
All right, so 1970s is a little bit of a pinch point for you.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think that I think one of the things that I oddly pay attention to a lot is how much storefront they're using.
Okay.
So I always look at a building, what walls could have been storefront, what they could have used for natural light versus what they didn't do. Just something.
That's awesome.
Look at.
Yeah, those words to either an owner of that building or somebody coming into that building to lease that space is like, that's like important stuff to understand, right? So
yeah, for me, I would say, because I travel quite a bit, and for me, it's all about convenience.
Okay.
So, can I get in the room with my phone without having to check into the front desk? Can I just use, all the facility, like the gym, like is it nice enough where, you have more than just the one machine and a couple of treadmills. So it's stuff like that, the room big enough where I can put down a yoga mat when I
Right.
need to, and can I squeeze that in and get a quick workout in just in the room, just stretch out and after being on the road. So it's little pieces like that it's like, when you supposed to have that and then the technology doesn't work, which inevitably it happens.
That's true.
That's the framework that I come from, because again, when you're on the road all the time, you really just want to get something that you're used to, you're comfortable with, and like, all right, I'm checking in, it's gonna be no issues, and then when there's issues, it happens. But that's
I'm
my
always
two
I'm
take
always
on.
like this experience thing, and I know that we kind of started, segueing at the beginning of this with like health and wellness, and this is why I ask, because like I walk around, I pay attention to everything, unfortunately, and it's not really from an interior design standpoint. It's more like that mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, like where's that outlet and where's the sprinkler head and where's the exit sign. So a little weird in that regards, but I have a profound appreciation for the interior designs and like how people go about it, or the automated process that you just talked about. And I'm thinking like, how will this all change? Like, I don't think it's just going to be like you just said, like a gym situation. Like, is there a way to transform a hotel to like have more of a health and wellness function than just a arbitrary gym, right? Or yeah, I think there will be changes. You might see medical office buildings mixed with yoga studios, right? Like if it hasn't already existed, it might exist more.
Yeah,
So
I mean, one thing, yeah, to your point, when we're at these buildings, hotels, and I do notice stuff, but it's usually like the things that aren't aligned. Like if you're walking down the hallway and the sprinkler heads aren't centered, or the lighting is just not quite right. Like those are the things that for our projects, that's really important to make sure we nail. And so when you see it, it's like, well, somebody just cut a little bit of a corner there, or there might have been some, design conflict, which is where BIM comes into play.
yep.
But there's no reason you shouldn't have everything aligned perfectly in a hallway, and that's just an aesthetic thing. A lot of like, coming back to buildings and its living organisms, it's what's behind the walls. You're not going
Yep.
to see your mechanical system. The lighting should be just right where you don't notice it. It's just at the right, just at the right levels and everything. Make sure simple as your toilet is working properly, and all these little things that add up. But it's definitely the aesthetics of a building, and then the functionality of what's behind the walls. How's that working together? Because one thing that I think maybe the general population doesn't notice, if you're not in this industry, is the fact that these medical buildings there's a lot of work that goes into behind the scenes.
Absolutely. So you started to segue into technologies, right? So a lot of HVAC type technologies are out there, and making those decisions kind of early on kind of the owner operator, right? Because um, who will be operating this building is kind of an important question at the onset, because if it's kind of the doctor that just wants to turn something on, you probably shouldn't have him trying to do like a cooling tower for the whole building, and or what does that maintenance program look like, right? And then occupancy, health, and kind of comfort, right? So you're starting to look into these larger displacement ventilation systems, your underfloor operations, but then what does that do with cleaning? So then, I've been a part of office renovations that like it made sense because they they just did the changeover between cubicles every like 2 to 3 years, and they realized that cost and ductwork changes alone made the underfloor system worth it. So it's like having these like very forward conversations with the end user group about, what is the overall intent, who's using it, who's gonna be your property manager. Is it gonna be one of the big guys like a JLL or a Cushman or whomever? Like, they're sophisticated enough to handle the bigger systems, but then if it's standalone person, we're also going through, cooling changes now. Like the whole, all the mechanical systems are changing because they've outlawed our refrigerant that we've used for the last decade.
Yeah,
So,
R22.
yeah, so we're now at R22 instead of 410A. Like, water's still the most efficient, but then you're stuck with this sophistication of how are you going to treat that water, right? And then I've started to, we would do like studies for terminal units and do like chilled beams or active chill beams or, fan coil units, and, great conversations to have, but you're trying to educate a client on the efficiency and then also trying to promote like what is the best system for that building. So it is a very gray line to walk, especially if, you have in your matrix that money and cost is your number one driver. And then it's, kind of occupant health and wellness. So
And at the very top levels, I mean, some of these companies are, and these not national organizations, they're demanding that. Like you gotta deliver on both, on the patient, side of things and how that's going to look, and on the maintenance side, because when you're managing, a couple million square feet, that comes down to, every little bit adds up. So even a percent here, a percent there is huge.
Agreed.
Changes or huge, overall effects on.
I see it a lot with existing buildings and doing changeovers and updates, and just understanding capital master planning and being able to have those open conversations early on. So
yeah, that's good stuff. So like you guys work across different industries, right? Healthcare,
yep.
civic projects. What unique challenges do you see emerging in, especially related to the MEP design, and like how do you kind of address them?
Good question. Usually everything is from the OPR, right? So your owner project requirement, right? So you're trying to identify everything that like the owner really, really wants to have into a building. Then we work through a basis of design document, which ultimately gets turned over to a general contractor, probably as soon as architectural schematic designs are put together. We're putting together the BOD to help solidify the budget for that given year, time, month, right? So I think to kind of answer your question is you need that process to go well every time. And I've done manufacturing facilities where it's taken longer to do that because the owner, knows how to do potting and knows how to build things and knows what their factory should look like. But then when you start getting into each individual item, it kind of reminds me of doing it in a hospital where you have a medical consultant helping you with all the equipment that's going into that space,
a whole team of
right?
Consultants, yeah.
So, I mean, from an MEP standpoint, where do I see it going? I think taking that level of sophistication and having it at the engineering level and then still being able to relate that to the qualified mechanical contractors, electricians, and plumbers to be able to get that done. And if there's a more seamless way to do it, I'm game. Like that's where I'd really like to push the envelope. I have about 6 guys that will do shop drawings for mechanical and plumbing contractors. We have done electrical contractors work. It's interesting, the dialogue, because it's all people, right? They're people. They have a way that they have always done things. They want to see it. How do I install it that way? And so that feedback loop's amazing. So kind of the big picture is getting the owner on board to be able to kind of understand their owner project requirements and getting it through the basis of design to ultimately taking some pretty early schematic design 3D modeling and kind of without getting into the coordination side, but being able to like hone in on some pricing and maybe even getting subs on board sooner rather than later. I think that's the true part of integrated project delivery that we don't probably talk about enough. It's been around for 20 years. A lot of people like window wash it, but in the true contractual self part, that's when it should happen. It's like generally SD to DD. The building's not changing form. The
Right.
programming's been set generally.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting point. Like you said, it's kind of gone by the wayside. Well, I haven't been in the industry that long, 20 years, but I mean, just since I started, I mean, when I first started, at Wilson and Company, we never really, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we ever really took a project prior to, had reached out to a sub, got them involved in the design early on with the design team and kind of pushed that project through that way. However, since I've been there, we have done that several times, and it seems like it does lead to a much more successful project as a whole, both for the contractor and the client.
right.
Yep.
Well, it's that design build that we've talked about in the past before, but it's also taken it to another level where the sooner you have everybody on the team on board, then the sooner I think you can have everybody marching to that same beat. So the architect, the consultants, the design, that whole design team, what they're designing is one thing, right? But then your subs and your contractors and estimating all marching along to make sure those prices are being kept, like that ship is on course for where it needs to go and it doesn't go way out of whack. And then also ordering the materials. Like now we're another topic of conversation has been tariffs, is we don't know where that's going. So there's always uncertainty in the market. Like that's just, I think that's the most certain thing, is there's going to be uncertainty. But how do we make sure we're working with the team? And some companies do this really well. They bring in the consultants and they really are at the top of the game when it comes to releasing the teams and just getting everything ordered. And you kind of have to be progressive in that sense and not wait till you have a permit in hand and all that, because you're going to miss the boat on so many different elements of the project. So if you wait till you have a permit to bring into your contractor, you're just behind the 8 ball.
I mean, I don't think you're going to end up getting good pricing and mobilizing fast enough, even though you got a permit. And I get it from a soft cost developer standpoint, right? Or, maybe not wanting to put those monies, that far in advance. But I find it extremely beneficial to getting the parties at least interviewed or budgeted, paying people for budgeting, like, you know what I mean? So there is a will and a way to do it. It's just whether the person wants to do it that way, that organization, those people. And I've seen a lot of different procurement processes. I think the most interesting one I've ever been a part of was Long Beach Courthouse, and they did it through performance-based infrastructure. So they took 4 or 5 different groups of people and made them get a finance guy, the construction group, the design group, the contractor, basically everybody but the subs. And then even the subs had to get hired by like SD, DD type level drawings.
Yeah.
Which was
Which
pretty
makes
awesome.
sense.
And it just cruised. And it was built in 3-4 years at its $300 million price tag.
Wow.
So
Yeah,
on
because you
time
missing
and
a
on
number.
budget.
Yeah, you missing a number at that range. That's going to be a challenge to overcome. I mean,
They basically gave the organizations, here's our programming, this is exactly what we need, build it, and we need it open by this day. Get it done, and everybody gets a bonus. And it's pretty wild how quickly people coordinate and get things moving when there's penalties or bonuses involved.
yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
I mean, most of the contracts that we signed today have some kind of a clause in there. It's usually for a penalty, not a bonus. But
right. The old liquidated damages.
Yep, a good old liquidated damages. I mean, it's part of it, and they have to ensure, especially on a larger scale, that there's going to be some sort of consequence, because
it's a lot of finger pointing, though, don't you find? Like at that point, like you're trying to give me liquidated damages for delaying the project as either a GC, sub, whatever. But if you don't have the information, or like, dear owner, we were supposed to have these OAC meetings and you didn't show up.
Usually they're involved though on that level when it comes to that. It's again, how much are you going to have your act together? But ultimately, you don't know. Sometimes it's a new client, and you just have to take the risk if you want the work, and we understand that, and that's just part of the deal. And again, if there's a better way, I'd love to know. But
and then you get, like I was saying, more sophisticated, maybe public type works people, and they'll layer construction managers, owners reps, kind of be able to kind of manage through the whole process and get it. So
yeah,
the procurement process is a fun one. So
yeah,
if anybody's out there needs a good owner's rep for all things mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, pretty good at it.
Nice. That's what we want to, get that recognition out there, and people hear, because oftentimes, even just going back to the beginning of the conversation, we go to conferences, we meet people in passing, and most people never ever even send a follow-up email. It's like, hey, nice meeting you. So it's that's what these conversations we find useful, is getting to know people. But what, just as far as like looking ahead, what MEP design, just trends maybe that are you excited about that you see on the horizon? And talk a little bit about AI, certainly, but is there anything else that
so the world of data centers, right? So we really want to go where AI is headed. You really want to go into that world. A friend of mine happens to be working for an organization that is going to help OpenAI build, $1 billion worth of data centers. So you start looking at, older technology, hot aisle, cold aisle type containment. It's the financial institutions that kind of, garnered that, with raised floors and all of this stuff. I'm fascinated that you have cooling temperatures in that regards to a certain point, and then Google going out and proving that they could operate their servers much higher temperatures, because they have redundancy built all over the nation. So it's one of those interesting ones. Like in-rack cooling was a big one at the data center show in New York City. They were talking about it, and it's been around for a while, but it's getting better. You know what I mean? The technology is getting better to that point, and the chips are requiring it because of the high latent heat. That's a techie one on techie about tech. You know what I mean? So like it can't get much more involved than that. My true passion, net zero, passive house, more outside air. How do we really create that? Worked on a really cool project in UC Berkeley about a decade ago, where it was a lot of natural ventilation. It takes a lot of forward thinking from the architect and the engineer working together, doing energy modeling and wind flow modeling. That's I think where it's at. Like you start to get into that, and my CTO Lewis, shameless plug for him, he does wind models pretty early on, wind and solar models to kind of help guide that process along right at the beginning. So it's pretty cool so that we can see, without without having an actual form yet, what it might be like. So I think if it's my world, it's all passive and natural and we figure it out. But we live in a world where everybody wants 72 degrees or lower.
Yeah, especially in Florida.
And in the humidity here, right? High humidity, like you want to be able to blast that out, like Jupiter Island obviously has some pretty well-to-do people, and there's a pretty crazy house getting built that needed all very complex mechanical systems to keep the humidity at 50%. So it was pretty awesome. But when you're talking about, millions of dollars worth of home and millions of dollars worth of artwork, it makes sense.
Yeah.
You create the redundancy, you build the system. So.
And that's where having you guys involved early in the process, if you don't know the client requires that kind of, just set points to be reached, then you're designing it to your standard 74 degree, 55% humidity. And then all of a sudden you build a brand new house 6 months later, it's got mold all over the place and you wonder why that happened. So in Jupiter Island is a prime example. That's going back. That's where I started my career in air conditioning.
I had no idea.
Right there you go. And Indiantown Road right off of there. So yeah, it's a different world out there, and you have to understand whether it's a home, whether it's a healthcare facility, whether it's another type of a business. You just the end user, the more they're involved and the more the entire team is involved, the more efficiently you're going to be able to meet what they're looking for.
That's why I don't start with the cost in mind at the beginning, and most engineers and architects don't, right? We're like, oh, what is the form, function, and programming? But holistically, kind of like the whole leaf idea and the living organism, well, we still got to feed it, right? And I guess feeding it in this case is money. And so it's like, how do we make the best version of that? Right. And not subject it to, if it was supposed to be a 5-story building, we're just going to remove a floor, right? Type mindset. But I've lived through it. 20 years of doing this. There's been programming changes to save money before that were above my that current time's pay grade. Now it's everything's collectively. We look at it holistically and we try to make those kind of assumptions early on by bringing on the right partners like you guys to be like, hey, does this make sense? Getting answers from you guys, you'd be like, well, that looks like it's out 6 months. I have probably a few weeks to get back to them. And I'm okay with that because I'm patient, but some clients aren't.
Yeah. Like I get a being here and being here now.
Yeah,
kinda
can you
deal.
give me a number on that? Like my favorite one's the Dilbert. Like, do you have a scope? And they're like, no. He's like, my number is $3,156,720. You're like, how did you come up with that? He's like, you don't know anything about my project. He's like, that makes two of us. Like I just threw a number. I tried, but
Yeah. And I mean, that's really all you have to work on, right? When somebody hits you that early on, we run into the same issue.
Hopefully you have like, is this timber? Is this steel? Right? Like, let's start with structurals.
We don't see too much timber in Florida. But
I know,
yeah,
but
it's certainly different parts of the U.S. You get that a lot more. I was going to ask you, since we're kind of getting towards the end of the conversation, is virtual design.
Okay.
As something you talk about as a service that you offer. Just curious, how do you think about that? What exactly does that mean to you guys?
So that one's, like I said, it's all about early on understanding of the project requirements, right? So we could take a simple, home and do it in single line AutoCAD, get it designed and turn it over to a builder and they can build it. And then you get more complex hospital, resilient type buildings with, structural considerations, and we will take it to what they call LOD 400 or level of design 400. And so just for the people who are listening that don't know, LOD 100 is kind of like simple model. We just threw some stuff into it. 200 is kind of like that design development phase where you're actually getting most of the stuff kind of into it, but it's not really coordinated. Level 300 is kind of that level where it's almost coordinated, everything's in there, you're really close, you could probably build it. I would call that like 300 like construction documents. You would turn those over to a contractor to build. And then 400 is the kind of the shop drawings, everything's organized and it will work that way, or at least the intent will work that way. And that's kind of, between 200 and 400 is when you want your conversations going on with your subs, or your sub working with that person to like make sure, the trust is there, the meetings are happening. And then you get into 500, and that's where VDC really takes off, which is scheduling, right? You're now scheduling the project. I've seen a few different firms do it where structurally they've scheduled out how all of it gets erected and put together. And then like 600 is like cost estimating or cost verification or cost whatever. Those are kind of used interchangeably. I may have gotten them wrong. And then I mentally wanted to create my own 700 version, which is like you take all of that and now it's actually real-time working building. But at this point, they call that the digital twin. So it's basically, if anybody's heard, it's you have your building and then you have a virtual model of everything that's going into it. And if you really want to, you can get your manufacturers and people to kind of show and work with you on your inputs and outputs on creating a real life digital twin, right? So like,
so you can kind of see like those building components, how they're going to work together, how they could potentially not work together before.
I'm saying at that level, that virtual twin is like the fan coil unit's operating and it's operating at this temperature, and I can go into it and I can look at it. And there's a bunch of different organizations out there that can help get to that point. Obviously, from a modeling standpoint, we'll take it to that 4 or 5 level. I won't take it to the manufacturer level, right? That graphic user interface that shows everything that's operating and how it works. But
Gets to be pretty sophisticated building controls and building automations and that levels.
But it's cool.
It
mean,
is.
I'm not saying it's not
sweet.
Cool.
But
paying for it might be not cool too. But
well, it depends on, like, again, if you have you're just a maintenance guy or a small maintenance team running around trying to control, figure out all the problems. Well, that's going to save you just by knowing ahead of time that, hey, you have one wing down before the staff even notices. Maintenance gets the alert.
Yep.
And
there's a lot of BMS systems that kind of help integrate all of that, and they've been around for a while. It's become more and more user friendly, graphical user interfaces, being able to fly around models and look in hallways.
Yeah, more complex on the back end.
Correct. We can make it as complex as you want, right? I mean, we could probably make a model where if the lights were on or off, you could fly around the model and look at it and be like, okay, it's 10 o'clock at night and all the lights are off, right? It'll visually show you that. So
yeah, no, that's good stuff. Well, it's been great having you, man. It's been a good conversation, I think. Maybe we'll have to do a part 2.
I like part 2
at some point.
That's the Margaritaville version.
Yeah. Well, can you share just how best way to find you, reach out to you? Is it
so the easiest way is website or email. It's mferguson@earthfirstco.com. I believe my phone number is out there too, 917-565-6255. Feel free, call me. I'm very available. Leave me a voicemail and we'll start looking at any problems that you used to have. I try to, come up with solutions, and any new problems that you're creating, we can find solutions to. It's a little bit of both. There's no shy of new construction, but existing buildings are just as important. So, another shameless plug, we're doing a banyan tree in Manila right now. That's a 240 key type project, which is pretty exciting. A little bit of interiors, HVAC, all that sort of stuff.
Very cool.
Help them out. But that's it. That's another hot landscape like Florida, right?
Yeah.
So
very cool. Again, glad to have you in the studio and enjoyed this conversation. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And we'll see you guys on the next episode.